there's a lot of nurseries here, and it's the central area for growing nursery crops in Tennessee. And it's been done for decades, and mainly because of the location. We're centrally located to a lot of the big population areas. We get a reasonable amount of rainfall every year, and so the environment is ideal for it. So it's a lot of different reasons why nurseries do well here. Nurseries grow these woody ornamental crops. When they sell them, the larger trees, they actually dig balled and burlap, and so they're actually digging into the soil, taking the native soil, cover it with burlap, and then taking that away, and it's going wherever, to the landscape or wherever. But they're not really, historically haven't done a lot to replenish that soil. Over the years, we've been depleting the soil, and we're just trying to find ways to help growers kind of build back their soil up and help with nutrient retention, water retention, those types of things. And so by using cover crops, we're thinking that might be a way to help build back that organic matter, build back the soil up from everything that we're losing. Cover crops have been widely used for years and years and years, and they know of the benefits. They haven't really been as widely adopted in nursery crops for whatever reason. And so what we've done, we've taken some of the research that have been done in these other cropping systems and tried to adapt that to our growers, our nursery crop growers, and their production system. First of all, we need to define what species work well here in Middle Tennessee or in the Southeast. And then we had to decide, okay, when's the best time to plant them? And so we conducted some basic variety trials, basically. And so we picked out some of the popular cereal grains like winter wheat, triticale, cereal rye, and then some of the clovers, crimson clover, red clover, and then some of the other more annual type cover crops like buckwheat and maybe tillage radish. And so we planted these. First we decided what season would be more adaptable for our growers. And so we decided that cool season cover crops would be a good option because you plant them and they grow during a time of year where the growers aren't really doing anything in the field. So it wouldn't really interrupt any of their other practices or anything that they're doing. And so this would be great. We could just grow them side by side with the trees and not interrupt anything. And so with the cool season cover crops in Tennessee, you typically plant them late August through October. And so they germinate, and then they just kind of really sit there during the coldest part of the winter, and then late winter, early spring, they really take off and start, growing shoot biomass. So they go to flower, and then they're annuals for the most part, and so they'll set seed, and then they're done. And so usually by May, most of the cover crops that we've been trying have senesced on their own and have really done their thing. And so that works out really well. And so we've decided that any of these cereal grains work well here. The ones that I mentioned, winter wheat, cereal rye, triticale, all do well in this area. Crimson clover is like a workhorse of the cover crops. And then that was good. It covered the ground, it reseeded typically, and so it would come back every year. And so it was a really good cover crop. But we were really wanting to find add some diversity to the cropping system. And so that's why we're trying some of the other cereal grains and these other legumes. And so, yeah, so the mix that we've come up with that we found that works the best and is really successful year after year is either winter wheat or triticale mixed with crimson clover. And so you can use those as a mix, and they establish really well. They work really well together. They don't compete with each other. You're getting the added benefits of the legume, which is a nitrogen fixing plant, and you get the added benefit of the cereal rye, or the grain, which has really deep root systems, which can scavenge some roots, adding biomass to the soil. And so they work really well together. In one season, you're probably not going to see a lot of soil benefits. We do get some biomass from the roots and the shoots breaking down and in the soil. We probably, with the legume, you may get a little bit of added nitrogen in the soil. But really, the soil benefits are going to come year after year after year after using these. I think over 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, by using these cover crops, you will see that increased organic matter in the soil. We have seen some other benefits in the short term, so just reducing soil erosion. And so a lot of our growers still till or disc in between the rows multiple times a year. So every time you do that, you're loosening the soil, you get a heavy rain, and then that topsoil just gets washed away. And so just by keeping something covered on the soil surface helps reduce that. And so that's where the cover crops come in, especially during the winter. Weed management is also another one. So the more time you have a cover crop there, the less weed pressure that you have. And obviously the less weed pressure, the less weed seed that's going back into the seed bank. And so over time, you're reducing the amount of weeds and weed seeds that are in your field. One of our collaborators is a plant pathologist. They've done some work where they've shown that just by having the cover crops in there, it reduces the amount of soil-borne pathogens in the soil. And so there's a lot of other benefits that we get from the cover crops. It's just trying to kind of tease out what all is there and then selling that to the grower. Just looking from this year, just looking at the cost of the seed, the main mix that we use, like the triticale and crimson clover mix, would cost around $50 an acre just for the seed. And so if we used another mix that had some other things like tillage radish and buckwheat in there, that might drive the cost up to maybe $70 or $90 an acre. And so just in general, that's kind of what the baseline cost for seed is. But we also have the cost of the equipment. And so the all-purpose seeders that we've been using that we found that work really well with getting these seeds established, in general, you range anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 or $9,000, and so that is an initial cost that a grower would have to incur. But over time, that would save them on the seed cost, because if we're talking broadcasting the seeds, you're wasting a lot of the seed. And so when we use an all-purpose seeder, we're targeting where those seeds are going, so you're minimizing the waste that you have in the seeds. And also, so the seed, the equipment, and then just the time, labor that it takes to plant the plots. There are some programs that help reduce the overall cost, and so the USDA NRCS has a program where they can do cost share on some of the cost of the seed. The Tennessee Department of Agriculture has a program to where growers can apply and buy equipment at reduced cost, and so they'll get some of that back. And so there are some programs that will help offset the initial cost of developing this. So there are some opportunities there. Part of the grant that we have with y'all, that we worked with y'all with, that was part of it. We bought an all-purpose seeder, and we bought 2 crimper rollers. And so what we've done is we've worked with our local Soil Conservation Service office, and those are available for growers. If they want to rent them, all they have to do is contact the office, and they can come here, we'll get them set up, they can take it out and use the all-purpose seeder to plant their cover crops. So yeah, that was part of this program, was to trying to get some equipment to growers to buy to entice them to kind of try it anyway. So this would be something similar to what a new nursery plot would look like. So we've come in here, prepared the soil, and then we planted crimson clover and triticale mix. And so we planted that back in September, and we'll come in here at the 1st of December and transplant our trees. And so these are red maple trees. They were planted, I think, about 2 years ago. And so we took, I think these were container grown liners. And so they were like 1 gallon container grown plants. And we disked the soil up, prepared it, and then we took our transplanter and then, mechanically transplanted all these trees. This was part of a cover crop study that we did. We were looking at how the cover crops recovered after the transplant. And we had a couple of different mixes in here that we're using also. Really what we found, as long as you've got something growing in the middle, it helps with preventing erosion. And so, but the problem is when you've got a lot of weeds, they tend to blow over into the rows, and then that causes competition. And so this is typically what we try to do, is have a middle that has a lot of vegetation, and then have a row that is pretty bare. We'll see what happens because of the drought we had after we planted. I don't know how well it's going to establish, but hopefully we'll get some more rain and get them growing, and we'll have something. But yeah, so this open area, we just decided just to plant this whole area just to try to start getting more organic matter back into the soil, because a lot of these areas have just been grass for years, and we've just mowed it, and there's really nothing's been done to replenish the soil. And so just trying to improve the soil that we have here on some of our test plots for future use. There's still a lot of work to do, but we're slowly getting there to find ways that something easy the grower can do and adopt and keep them from saving them some money. So hopefully that's the idea, is to get more people involved, try it out, and then keep adopting it. So yeah, slowly but surely we're getting growers to adopt these practices, and so it's been really great.